I'm Carys Roche, Customer Success Team Lead in EMEA for Partnerize, and I am delighted to be joined today for this PI Live global session by Jared Field from Browns Fashion and Jaqueline Wladis from Condé Nast. And we discuss how luxury brands are approaching and finding success in the partner marketing channel. So I just want to pass over to our panelists quickly for them to introduce themselves. Jared, did you want to go first?
Go for it. Hi, I'm Jared. I'm the Senior Performance Manager at the luxury fashion boutique Browns, and I manage the performance team focusing on digital marketing, so affiliates, SEM, paid social, display and retargeting, and I've been there for nearly 3 years now.
Good stuff, thank you. And now, Jaqueline, it'd be great to hear a bit about yourself for our audience.
Hi, I'm Jaqueline Wladis. I head up commerce partnerships for all of the Condé Nast titles. So I manage all of our merchant and network partnerships in the affiliate space. You're one main point of contact for everything Condé Nast, from Allure, the beauty expert, to, of course, Vogue, the fashion icon, and everything in between.
Good stuff. Brilliant. Thank you. So before I start firing questions to you both, I just want to give you guys and the audience some context as to why we wanted to hold this panel and have you both, given your relevant experience and backgrounds, contribute to this conversation. From a Partnerize perspective, so as a technology platform that allows brands to manage their partnership programs, we obviously gain some really interesting insight into the partnership channel and how different verticals are using it. Recently, we have seen a notable influx in luxury brands joining our platform who are keen to scale their partnerships. I think previously, and possibly you will agree or disagree, there is a perception around affiliate marketing that has dissuaded some luxury brands from giving it the credit it deserves. As I think, affiliate marketing is possibly largely seen as voucher, coupon, and cashback led, which perhaps didn't fit with the sales goals and perception that this brand type, that luxury brand types wanted to be associated with. However, as we see partnerships diversify so much into areas like loyalty, content, and influencers, this channel has become incredibly legitimate and lucrative for luxury brands. So hopefully we're going to go into a little bit more detail later down the line. But for now, I think the potential as well for the luxury brands to adapt their program and pivot commissioning structures and other variables are further pushing partnerships into the limelight, which is causing greater interest. And we're seeing some of the brands we work with and the industry in general using the channel in some really cool and unique ways. So with that in mind, Jaqueline, I hope you don't mind, I'm going to send this question your way first. Let's start with the evolution of luxury brand partnerships. In regards to fashion brands or luxury brands in general using affiliate programs, what are you seeing in the market today?
Yeah, there's been so much change. I've been at Condé Nast for about 3 years and previously was working for another fashion tech startup. So I really started in affiliate in 2014, kind of when content was just starting to enter the space and everything was coupon, loyalty, cashback, vouchers, coupon codes, obviously how affiliates started. And I think all of those publishers are still important to a well-rounded, smart affiliate program. But as content publishers have begun to enter the space more and more, especially with Condé Nast, so have luxury fashion partners. I've seen programs, I've seen Jimmy Choo open programs, Dolce & Gabbana, Gucci. I mean, brands you never thought would be on affiliate are joining affiliate more and more. And I think the biggest thing that is going to be the next great challenge now that we've really got these luxury brands onto affiliate is how are they going to compete for the link out with their wholesale partners like Net-a-Porter, Matches Fashion, Essence, these big online luxury department stores.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point you make about the link out and the marketplaces. Yeah, I'm definitely interested to see the answer to that. Do you think that anything has changed specifically in 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are now where we thought we'd be in 5 years. I think the COVID-19 pandemic everyone knows this, it's in all the research, it goes without saying, it's really sped up the shift to online retail. I know my cousin works for the most luxury brand in the world, and I won't embarrass her by saying what it is, but they can't keep items in stock. And you never thought people would be buying $15,000 bags online, but now they are, because people don't want to leave their homes. So it's really sped up the e-commerce revolution. I think, I looked at a US e-commerce marketers report. I'm going to be really embarrassed if I get this wrong, but it was supposed to be that 12 or 14% of sales being online this year, and now it's projected to be much higher than that. So I think, no one could have predicted the pandemic, but it's been an incredible boom for e-commerce in general, and especially with luxury brands. Their clients are getting more and more used to buying their items online.
I think that's really interesting. Yeah. And Jared, I suppose from my point to bring you into the conversation, obviously Browns are in a really quite a unique position in the sense that you have both online and high street presence as well. But I mean, how have Browns found 2020, and has there been any sort of particular shift in focus for you guys that you possibly weren't anticipating?
For sure, definitely. I mean, obviously, 2020, what a crazy year for everyone. But for Browns, I mean, going into 2020, it was already sort of a different year for us as an online business. So we actually made the decision last year to not do any sort of sales or seasonal promos, so no winter summer sale, no Black Fridays. So everything's kind of been marketed at full price. So you won't see any of our products kind of marketed with strike-through markdown price. So we already had a different approach going into 2020. And then obviously the pandemic sort of struck, and we've been very lucky as a business, really. I know we've got 2 stores in the UK. They obviously really struggled. They've had to shut down in the peak of the first wave. But for the online side of the business, we are a bigger business from an online perspective. It hasn't really changed our kind of shift. We have really sort of continued this sort of approach where we're not taking part in sales. But we've had a change in terms of our focus of where we are stripping out sale. We've got a margin target for this year. We've never had that before. We're looking at retention of how can we, speak to our existing customers to think about buy more from us and be more efficient with that at the same time. So where we've kind of had that sort of focus with us, we're seeing it hasn't really changed. I mean, we're going into 2020 with a different approach from the get-go. But since the sort of pandemic, we have noticed some things that we weren't really expecting. So, for example, we weren't expecting lower returns rates. So that was quite an interesting one. I think it seems to be a common theme along that I've read in sort of retail. There's a few theories of why that's happening. Maybe it is a shift in the categories. Bags, shoes, fine jewelry has also had a good year for us. So, those sorts of items, they tend to come in one size, or you kind of know what your shoe size is, and you're less likely to return that. Or it could just be, you don't want to go and queue outside a busy post office. There's lots of speculations within the team to try and come up with their own theories, but we yet to do the sort of return analysis or piece on that. So I think that'd be quite interesting to try and understand. But we've seen some great success with the online business. It has done really well. We've been very lucky that the warehouse has been able to operate throughout the pandemic. We've been able to, try and keep up with the orders coming in. We are seeing growth on the year, especially in some markets more than others. So the US has been a really positive market for us. It's showing really good signs of growth. It has a good margin for us. So it is a market that we tend to sort of target from a performance marketing perspective anyway.
I'm glad you mentioned the US. I was going to ask you about that. So that's quite interesting, actually, that you've seen it really spike in the US. That's fantastic.
I think Jared mentioned something really interesting about sales and discounting, and I think that is one of the biggest reasons why luxury partners were likely so hesitant to enter the space at all. I know from our personal data at Condé Nast and speaking to some of our larger luxury partners, 90% of the sales that we're driving are full price. Our shoppers are really shopping full price. And so when a large retailer comes and says, oh, we don't want you to message our sale, or we're going to do, a lower commission on sale items, it's kind of not as big a deal to us, because in the content space, we're not as focused on deals. And I think that is something that can really damage a brand. I think that was a really interesting point that Jared brought up, and also a blocker for why it's taken so long for luxury brands to enter the space.
Yeah, really good point, Jaqueline. I think the point you made about the content partners is massive, and possibly they were underestimated at the first. And you're absolutely right. I think there's still definitely a space for all different types of affiliates, but I think it's quite interesting to see how the landscape is changing. So yeah, that's definitely interesting, and that brings us quite nicely onto our second question. So Jared, how are you incorporating different types of partners into your program?
So yeah, we have, obviously you've got all your affiliates that are always part of the program, but where we're trying to incorporate different ones, we're seeing great success with loyalty partners. They drive a very good quality customer for us. So whereas Jaqueline mentioned maybe cashback and vouchers, they don't really have the best reputation amongst the luxury brands, and loyalty kind of plays in really nicely for us. So partners like Core8 we work with in the UK, they work with partners like BA and Virgin on your air miles and redeeming that way, and that we've seen great success from those guys. They drive strong ATVs, or the average transaction value has been very, very quite attractive for us, and also the customers that come through from those guys. So they tend to drive a good quality customer that we see from that partner. And then in the US, sort of the equivalent of Core8, Cartera, we work with. So they work with American Airlines, United, I think Chase Bank and Wells Fargo as well. So we also see some strong quality of customers coming from these guys. So I kind of challenge my team to try and focus a bit more on loyalty partners, because we do see some strong performance generated from these guys. Reward Gateway is another one in the UK. Qantas in Australia. We've seen really good performance this year. I mean, despite probably people not going on holidays or using airlines, we are seeing that it is, we're seeing good sales coming from their audience, from their platform. So that's been an area that we're kind of focusing on.
I wonder if the point you make about the airlines still driving a pretty good quality customer is because people are not traveling so much. Yeah. So maybe they're converting their points and spending them on these luxury items that they might not usually buy.
That's true. I mean, I haven't been on
can't go to Australia, so therefore you buy a $15,000 handbag. Who knows?
Yeah. And some other sort of your non-traditional affiliate types we've seen great success with is banking partners in recent years. So last year was sort of the first campaign that we did with a banking partner. We did one in the UK, Korea, and in Australia as well. So we did an initiative with them last year, and we saw really good success at driving new acquisition from customers. And we've done that again this year, but we did our first one in the US. We continued in the UK. We couldn't actually do it again in Korea. It got booked up very quickly. So they're obviously quite popular. But they work in a different way, I guess, to your typical transactional based. So the data is very robust, I guess, in that sense. You don't need to accept cookies in that sense. It's all transactional. And we were looking at ways to try and develop it this year. So we had a different mechanic in the US. It was a spend and save model that was kind of recommended by the banking partners, resonating sort of better than a percentage off to the US market. And then we worked with our CRM team to try and replicate some of the segments that they speak to within our customers, lapsing customers. We kind of applied the same practice to the banking partner that we worked with to try and offer them a different proposition. And then again, new and existing customers, we sort of spoke to them differently this year.
Stuff. I was going to ask about how you're possibly treating these partners differently, but I think you've answered it perfectly there. I mean, there's different metrics for different partners and different programs, and I suppose that's the beauty of it, right? We kind of do have all this data at our disposal to use how we see fit. Yeah, I think my next question is going to go to Jaqueline. So it'd be great to hear from a partner's perspective as well, Jaqueline, on how you are working with these luxury retailers. So, just questions around how are you measured? How do you measure yourself? Is this different for each brand, or do you use a universal approach?
Both and, yes. So we use a universal approach that results in a different outcome for every brand. Obviously, all of these luxury partners are also sold at the likes of Nordstrom, Net-a-Porter, Matches. As I mentioned before, Amazon is even rolling out their high-end Amazon fashion experience.
Wow.
They started with Oscar de la Renta. So when a brand approaches me, a luxury brand, take, for example, Alexander McQueen. So Alexander McQueen approaches me, they want to link to their O&O. And we heavily use skim links on all of our sites. We have 3 years worth of data to see how a site's been converting. And what we use to measure all of our partnerships is earnings per click. So earnings per click is commissions, like the revenue you've paid out to us divided by the clicks that we've sent you. So a lot of things go into earnings per click. And if you see my session that's right before this, I explain that whole revenue formula. But at the end of the day, we are very editorial first. Editorial integrity is paramount to our commerce content and to our strategy. It's why we are able to deliver both top of the funnel branding awareness and bottom of the funnel influence on sales that you'd normally see from like a cashback or loyalty site. But when a writer or an editor chooses that Alexander McQueen bag, we're going to look at all the places on the internet that it's sold. And if it's sold at Matches or Net-a-Porter, and we see that the earnings per click historically has been something like 50 cents, and we look at alexandermcqueen.com and see that their earnings per click is 4 cents, we're going to link to the bag on Net-a-Porter or Matches.
Yeah.
So if a retailer, and that's that universal formula, like that can be applied to any merchant, but it's a different outcome for every merchant. So if a merchant comes to us like Alexander McQueen and I'm really just using them again as an example because I don't think they have an affiliate program and I've never heard from anyone from there. So I think this might be the least offensive way to offend.
We won't hold you to it, Jaqueline, don't worry.
Yeah. But when any of these partners come to me, it's really about earnings per click. And one of all of the factors that go into earnings per click are what's the conversion rate of your site, what's the average order value or average transaction value, as Jared mentioned, of your site, and what commission rate are you giving. And I think anyone that's been in e-commerce knows it can take months, if not years, to A/B test and roll out a full product and marketing plan to increase AOV, to increase conversion rate. But you can change commission rate with a flip of a switch in seconds or minutes. So it really comes down to, are you able to raise your commission rate up high enough to make the EPC worth it for us to link to your site rather than a Net-a-Porter or a Matches. And that goes for any partner, not just luxury. And then when it comes to luxury partners specifically, and luxury, and I would say also luxury publications like we have, like with Vogue and Vanity Fair and GQ, we are very specific about making sure that the brands that we're featuring not only match up with Condé Nast's core values of sustainability and diversity and inclusion, but also really the product quality is there and they're really worthy of being recommended by a Vogue editor or a GQ editor.
No, I think that sounds, really fair. And, Condé Nast to Condé Nast for a reason. It sounds like you guys have got it all pretty worked out from that perspective. Thank you for sharing that. I'm going to jump on to the next question. So, Jared, given what you've told us about some of those partner types that you're finding particular success with right now, it would be great to understand how important incrementality is for your partner programs. And I suppose two elements to that is, how are you measuring this? It'd be quite interesting to understand that. And if you can share any unique data points that are useful for you to capture.
So I guess how we're measuring, I guess to Jaqueline's point, we don't measure all partners the same, but in terms of what sort of unique data points that are useful to capture, I guess where we really want to sort of develop in is the new and existing customers sort of approach. So we migrated to Partnerize this year in May, I think it went live. So really tapping into the technology offered by you guys. So it's set up through an API, this time whereas before we were all done through tracking pixels. We can pass back new and existing customer information. It's an area we really want to develop on for next year. So we want to look at commission structures that way. You can get really granular. You can offer, you can do it quite dynamically with margin, which we do have a target for this year. We're not sort of set up there yet to implement that now, but next year is where we want to get to. But the sort of big focus is the new and existing customers. Speaking to them differently, trying to, drive new customers in markets where brands is just, not known at all, but also, trying to speak to our existing customers, because, the ones that we buy from us, we want them to keep thinking of brands and coming back to us.
Good stuff. So my next question is going to be directed to you, Jaqueline. Are you managing luxury brands differently to other traditional affiliate programs? I know, obviously, and being in the position that you're in, luxury is a really key focus for you. But in your experience, it'd be great to find out what is different or what is unique, and also what are you finding that is working or isn't working with your audience?
Yeah, I think it's difficult because I'm one person managing 500 different relationships. So, of course,
a superwoman.
It's a bit different. I have noticed, luxury partners really are very careful about their image, and so universally we have a rule: if you're going to work with one Condé Nast title, you really have to work with all Condé Nast titles at the same rate. But for less than 5 luxury partners, we have made exceptions where you can work with Vogue and Vanity Fair and Glamour and GQ and maybe Condé Nast Traveler, which, shameless plug for Condé Nast Traveler, the silent driver of retail and luxury fashion that no one ever thinks about more than just, air flights and hotels. But, they're very careful about the content they want to be in. Obviously, we are very careful as well, especially with Vogue. We have very strict guidelines around not saying certain words because we don't want to cheapen our brand. I think a lot of us have seen what happens when a brand just discounts. people stop buying full price. People just wait for things to go on sale. And I think that's actually a really interesting trend we've been hypothesizing about for Cyber Monday, is that over the past 6 years, I've seen sales used to be highest on Black Friday, but now I've seen a flip where sales are highest on Cyber Monday, but I'm not seeing different sales. So I'm hypothesizing that it's the consumer thinking the sales are going to get better on Cyber Monday. They don't, and then they buy the item anyway. And I think for, the luxury, for like these continued use of the word sales and discounts and deals, it can really cheapen the brand. And so not only when it comes to our luxury partners are we trying to avoid that language, but also when it comes to ourselves and our publications that are so luxury, we're not going, when we write like a sale post on Vogue, we're not necessarily using the word sale at all in the copy, but you can see in the price differences that the item is on sale.
Nice. Where that English degree comes in handy, eh?
Yeah.
Great. That's been really, really interesting, guys. Thank you so much. The final question I think I'm going to put out to both of you is, what one piece of advice would you give someone who is trying to evangelize for a bigger role for partnerships in their brand? Maybe if we go to Jaqueline first.
Yeah, I would say this is ultimately, if you're doing partnership marketing right, it's a win-win it's a win-win partnership. It's a always ROI channel. It's a way to spread awareness about your brand, and always on a ROI positive basis. And I would say, you can put parameters with your publisher partners around how you're featured. You can always try and do that. That can always be part of the negotiation. I mean, this is a constant negotiation for commission rates and placements. And there's always the option to put parameters around how you're featured, or to at least try, depending on the publisher partner. So don't be afraid to take the risk and take the test, because it's definitely going to be ROI positive. Good
stuff. ROI, I like it. And you, Jared?
I guess the piece of advice, to my team, I always say, we always take a data-informed approach. So if you're going to bring 3 or 4 proposals to me, let's look at it. And that way, if you can only choose one, we have to look at the data. I guess if you're new to sort of partnerships, maybe persevere to try and reach out to these guys, because for some of the banking partners we've tried to reach out, it took almost 2 months to find the right person to speak to, just to get the right contact. I mean, they're very big corporations, and we really wanted to work with them. So that in that respect, persevere. Don't be afraid to sort of test something, because if you're taking a data-informed approach, if it's a success, if it fails or not, at least you've tested it and you've taken that risk. So I guess that's my
test and learn, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly.
That was both fantastic answers. So I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure having you both join us today. And I think we've really seen that partnerships is such an opportunity for luxury brands. It is a case of finding the right partners who understand how important your brand perception is, and leveraging their audience to appeal to the unique KPIs of luxury brands. I would like to thank Jared and Jaqueline for joining me today and sharing their own insights and experiences on behalf of Browns and Condé Nast. Myself and Jaqueline are going to be available following this session for a live Q&A, so please feel free to send over any questions that you might have. Thank you for joining us, and once again, thank you to our brilliant panelists.